I'll tell you what, Tim, I'm with Tim Montgomerie here from the Conservative Home. Not so long ago, sitting in that very seat, I can remember a fresh-faced sort of political editor, name of Ross Kempsell. Young lad, fresh-faced, handsome young lad. He's now a lord. He's about 31. Yeah. And then, of course, there's Charlotte Owen, who was a junior Downing Street factotum or something. She's a lord, thanks to Boris Johnson. Keir Starmer, I remember about a year ago, maybe it was a little longer than that, but he made a big, bold statement saying, I will be the Labour Prime Minister who finally abolishes the House of Lords. And we're all thinking, no, when you get into power, what you'll do is what all the rest of them do, is you're just like power broke, giving peerages to all your mates, trying to...
Stuff it with your cronies,
and so on and so forth. That's what you'll do, and that, of course, is what he will do. He hasn't done anything. He's still talking about being the person who will bring about the biggest reforms to the upper chamber for 20 years, but it looks like his massive reform is this. People who nominate people for peerages to become lords or baronesses or barons, whatever, under these radical new proposals, these proposals will have to be accompanied by a citation setting out why...
Not a citation, Kevin.
Yeah, setting out why this candidate would be an asset to the upper chamber. So what they're saying is, this is massive. I want Tim Montgomerie. I'm proposing Tim Montgomerie to be a lord, you know, in the House of Lords. Hang on a second. That doesn't obey the rules. I think he should be a lord because he's a man of estimable character and a fine person and was very good on Conservative Home. OK, he's in. That's it. Yeah. That's the reform. You now have to say why someone should be a lord. That isn't a reform. That's pathetic.
It's absolutely cosmetic in almost every sense. And what you said is absolutely true. When people get into power, they realise that the House of Lords is a good way of rewarding friends, rewarding sometimes donors, rewarding people they want to keep quiet, rewarding MPs they want to shuffle on to bring new blood, you know, to replace them. And that's why the House of Lords, I think it's only the Chinese legislature that is bigger in the world. It's so full now of people who, you know, turn up, they can take their, you know, daily allowance, tax-free allowance. They only have to be there, I think, for 20 minutes, then they can go away. But no, it's huge because it's stuffed with these cronies. And it's a shame because there is a lot of good people in the House of Lords who do good work. I always say to people, if you took a sort of blind test and had Hansard from the House of Commons or Hansard from the House of Lords, Hansard being the document that records what the debates are, and I said to you, which one is from the Lords and which one is from the Commons, or which one is the best? People inevitably choose the Lords ones because it's people of experience, people who achieve things. Whereas a lot of the politicians, it's all about they're calculating in the normal way that politicians do. It's political speak. So the House of Lords, although it kind of shouldn't work, it does work, but it is bloated and there are too many bad people in it, and it needs to be thinned out and just concentrate on those people who actually do work and actually do scrutinise legislation.
But Starmer, you know,
he's not going to do that.
He's not going to do that.
No.
You know, I think everybody, once they get to number 10, people start saying, "Hey, mate, you know, you don't want to get rid of this. This is one of your main ways to broke your power."
Yeah. My great regret, though, as you've been talking about me in Downing Street, when Boris Johnson first became Prime Minister, he said to me, "So what do you want, Tim?" He said, "Do you want to be in the boiler room with me, or do you want Ermine?" And I chose the boiler room with him. Big mistake! Big mistake! And, of course, I fell out with him about 4 months later because I think I could see a lot of the dysfunctionality coming. So I didn't get my place in the boiler room for long. Or my Ermine. What a mug I am.
So you got 0 out of 2.
Naught out of 2.
That ain't bad. That ain't bad. What do you think of what's going to become of Boris in the future? Will he just sort of be... By the way, here's something that really annoys me. When he said, "Oh, we need a referendum on the ECHR." Well,
your impersonation of Boris is a lot better than mine.
Well, you know, he used to be the Prime Minister. He could have got us to leave, couldn't he?
He could have done. But the thing is, I've just about finished his book. It's such a disappointment, Kevin. I don't know why I still keep hoping and believing that he's going to come good. But the thing was, it wasn't just Partygate. Immigration went up when he was Prime Minister. Taxes went up. He was basically Greta Thunberg on some environmental stuff. He didn't govern as a Conservative. Yeah. And so I don't really understand why a lot of Conservatives want him back.
I always said it. I mean, he infuriated. I mean, a lot of our audience, with great respect, I don't think they really thought it through. They sort of bought his bluster, you know, and his boosterism. But I was just say, well, hang on a second. You know, I don't mind the idea of Boris. He's good fun, and I suspect in the right circumstances he could be an okay leader. But I'm not buying. He was a fanatic about green claptrap, wasn't he? And that wasn't. He wasn't very conservative. That was his problem.
That was the problem. He delivered Brexit, and you know there'll be people listening who are Remainers, and they'll never forgive him for that. I will always be grateful for the combination of him and Nigel Farage getting us out of the European Union. But that's sort of like number one on the list of achievements. I can't get really very easily to 2, 3, 4 or 5. It was a pretty thin list of achievements in what he did in office.
Yeah, and he never. I mean, in his book, he actually says that he shouldn't have apologised for Partygate. Now, I'm all for the fact it's pretty nonsensical to be fining people for having a bit of birthday cake or a glass of wine with a friend in the office. I'm all for the principle of that, had he not effectively made us all obey those rules. And he and his gang, his acolytes, never got it on board just how furious people were about that. Partygate was the beginning of the end for the Tories.
It really was. And what is the image that stays, the public image that stays most with you from that period, Kevin? For me, and I get emotional.
The Queen?
The Queen. The Queen sat on her own in a church mourning her husband. And she was, you know, I still miss her. She was the embodiment of public service, wasn't she? And it was the contrast, it was just different. I know it's just like, you know, different circles. But the basic thing was most of the British population lived by the rules during that period. They made sacrifices. And then, you know, the stories of like a luggage trolley of alcohol from a local co-op, you know, trundling down the street of Downing Street into number 10. People were angry unjustifiably, and of course, you know, even if you weren't personally involved in that party, it was your team in Downing Street who were behaving like that. Of course you apologise.
Yeah, and with the Queen, nobody would have told her to do that. She would have inherently known that this is what I have to do. And she would have felt it was her moral duty to have to obey the same rules as her people. That kind of humbleness, humility, doesn't occur to people like Boris Johnson, or let's put that more directly, it doesn't occur to Boris Johnson.
She was the best of us. She really was, wasn't she?
So just before you go, a couple of minutes left. You reckon Cleverly is going to win the Tory
I do, and
leadership?
That worries me. You know,
in what respect?
He's a really nice guy. You know,
I like him.
You will find very few people in Westminster on the Labour or the Tory side who will not like James Cleverly. And, you know, the line he gave in his speech in Birmingham last week, let's just be normal again. You know, that's not...
Big arse.
Well, it is actually quite a big arse. But
that's what I meant.
But, you know, he is a nice guy. But, and I think it's a big but, and I want to be proven wrong, is a few months ago, the Conservative Party got hammered in a general election. And they got hammered because we were so far away from what we should have been as a party and all that. And his policy agenda looks to me a little bit like continuity. He's not really, you know, he's claiming it is, in that same speech where he said, let's be more normal, how he got immigration down under control. You didn't really, Jay. You may have made a bit of a beginning. And I think the big reality in British politics is that the right of British politics is split. Reform aren't going to go away. Nigel Farage is a very accomplished politician. And James Cleverly has closed the door to sort of any kind of arrangement or really even dialogue with Nigel Farage. So I'm worried we're going to get the split on the right continuing. And you know who benefits most from that? Two-tier Keir.
Two-tier Keir, yeah, oh, for God's sake. Very last question, got to move on, but I think that one of the things that worries me about James Cleverly, and indeed Kemi Badenoch for that matter, is that they don't want to leave the ECHR. I was just asking Rod Liddle, I cannot for the life of me see what it is that we get out of membership of the ECHR, except for people like Ardit Binaj, 32, being able to stay in this country because the ECHR says we have to keep him, even though he's done 2.5 years in our jails for burglary. So I don't know what we get out of membership of the ECHR.
I think people who would defend it would say we don't get anything directly other than it constrain by Britain being a member, other countries are members, and therefore they stop doing the kind of excessive things that we would not want them to do. I'm not sure that argument works, but I think that's what people who defend it would say.
You're right about the continuity. No, the last thing that Tories want, or the country wants, is a Tory leader who's just going to carry on as was. Now, a great gesture to make, my new party, we hereby leave the ECHR. I think Tory voters would love it. Loads of people around the country would love it. Why the caution?
Because the Tory party has lost a lot of its confidence, I think. It's a bit like, when you have been badly beaten, you've been badly bruised, people stop liking you. You're worried about saying anything very much at all, I think, for fear of, is this going to be another disaster I'm going to inflict on my party, on myself? So
story of my life, this, by the way. Tim, how fantastic to have you in. Thank you very much. Come and see us again soon. The brilliant Tim Montgomerie.